Welcome to Design Domination, where you'll gain confidence, clarity, and a competitive edge in a crowded marketplace so you can dominate your competition. Hi, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Colleen Grotzer, and in this episode of Design Domination, I'm joined by special guest Shannon Mattern. Stay tuned as we talk about undercharging and over-delivering, as well as some pricing pitfalls. Shannon Mattern is founder and CEO of the Web Designer Academy, which provides strategic business, marketing, and sales coaching for women web designers. She's also the host of the Profitable Web Designer podcast, the go-to resource for marketing, mindset, money, management, and mentorship to help you create a profitable, sustainable, and fulfilling web design business. That was a lot of really good M words, by the way.
Thank you.
Welcome to the podcast, Shannon. I'm so excited you're here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Well, I thought we'd start off with a couple of fun questions. And the first one is, when it comes to swimming, do you test the water or do you just dive right into the deep end?
I plug my nose and dive into the deep end because I cannot put my face underwater. Never learned that skill. Something I would like to accomplish, at some point in my life. But yeah, no, plug my nose, just dive on in.
Yeah, I usually go in the shallow end and I take my time. Then I used to just go right in, and now I'm just like, nope, I'm getting too old. Everything's cold.
Or just like get in the hot tub and skip the whole cold part.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, and the other question is, would you rather see the future or change the past?
Ooh. See the future. I'd rather see the future. Yeah. The past led us to where we're at today. You can't escape those lessons.
That's true. Yeah. I was just going to say the same. Yeah, exactly. So you have had your own web design business before, and you help web designers, now with their businesses. So I wanted to find out more about how you ended up having your own web design business.
Yeah, so it was back in like mid 2014, and I had been at my day job for, 7 or 8 years at that company at that time, and kind of had this moment at my desk one day where I was just like, I don't think I could do this for the rest of my life. This can't be all there is. There's got to be something more. Mm-hmm. And working for someone else and just kind of like grinding away, doing reports that nobody looks at, just none of it really felt fulfilling to me. And there were kind of a lot of little things that coalesced around that time that made me think maybe I could do this on, do something on my own, be my own boss. And then, I was in charge of our marketing and our IT and a lot of different things at the, it was a small company, but I was in charge of those departments. And so I was in charge of our website. I solved a lot of business problems with tech, with WordPress. I mean, whenever somebody was like, we need to do, run this conference and sell these tickets and run an online portion and all that, I'm like, I can build that for us. Mm-hmm. So I did that, and I solved so many business problems with tech. And then one day, one of our vendors that I integrated with in some of these solving these business problems was like, hey, like who built your website? Who did this? Who made this functionality for you? And I'm like, I did. And he's like, do you do any work on the side? And I was like, sure. And that's kind of how it got started. I told someone else that story. Like I was at the gym telling my friend, like, cool thing happened. I think I'm going to do this side gig. And he's like, my dad needs someone. I didn't know you knew how to do that. And it just kind of snowballed from there, from me like kind of being open to the idea in the first place. And then I think that was like a total coincidence that it happened, but then I really started pursuing it from there.
Now, like most of us, when we get into working for ourselves, things happen and we're wearing all the hats and we face a lot of challenges, to say the least. So what kinds of challenges did you face in particular that like really stand out as like,
Oh man. Okay. All of the challenges. I'm like, what challenge did I not face?
Yeah.
Um, like I would say, like, I will answer like what questions did I not face? Like I knew I could figure anything out. And I think that
Hmm.
that's really what drove me because I was charging. I was like, oh, the vendor asked me, What's your hourly rate?" I'm like, I don't know. I just was like, well, here's what I make at my day job. So that's what I charge. But then in my mind, I'm sure deep down it was like, well, that's all I'm allowed to charge because that's all anybody's ever paid me before.
Mm,
Um, I didn't realize that at the time, but I was like,
sure.
here's what that breaks down to, which, I just is completely unsustainable. And having multiple clients, charging an hourly rate, acting like having no boundaries, being on
Oh,
call 24/7,
oh,
acting like all of these clients were also my boss.
right. They are. Right. A
Um,
lot of times they are if you don't have
yeah,
those boundaries. Oh my goodness.
feeling like I had to say yes to everything, that their emergencies were my emergencies.
Yes. Oh my God.
Working on evenings, weekends, on vacation. When I'm sick, when my family's sick and I'm in the waiting room at the hospital, like just constant. So I made all of those mistakes, but I also felt like I was working towards something bigger. And so I was like willing to do it. But then I got to the point where I was like, there's no light at the end of this tunnel. Like something's got to give here because this just isn't working. And this
Like
is
you're
not creating
trapped.
the freedom that I was seeking when I said yes to that first client.
Right. Like you're totally trapped in your business.
Yep.
Oh
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I can relate to all of that for sure. I mean, every one of those things and the ridiculous things that I put up with. And yeah, it's like the people pleasing was a big one. So lack of boundaries and people pleasing were really bad for me.
Yeah. And you fear like, well, if I don't say yes to this, then they're going to not refer me or leave me a bad review, or I'll never get another client, um or they'll be mad at me, or
Mm-hmm.
they won't pay me and I'll lose the job. Like there's so many things that go through our heads that, we're conditioned to react that way through being in corporate or in life or that we're
Yeah.
just like, oh, I have to make sure this person's happy so that I can stay safe and secure. And we carry those things with us into our web design business if we're not aware of them, and we don't know better, like until it becomes unsustainable. And then you either got to fix it. My choice was like, I got to fix this, or this is not gonna, I'm just gonna go back to my day job and pretend like this never happened.
It's funny though, because it's like with designers that I've talked to, like what the designers that I hear from the podcast, but also designers that I've mentored, you know, I can just see like, I can see that I can just see the people pleasing. Like I can see that everybody seems to have this trait who's a designer, like until they get to that point where they actually recognize it and then stop doing it. It seems to me that most designers, I'm guessing it's because maybe we're more empathetic, but there is like so much of that people pleasing behavior that really sabotages our business.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I totally agree with you. I see this in almost everyone that we work with too. I
Hmm.
think there's part of it that's like the empathetic. I think part of it's like we want validation, right? Like
Yeah.
we put a lot of work into creating something and we want you to love it. And until, if you don't, we're going to like tweak and change and say yes to everything to make sure that you're happy. I don't know if that's like a um I don't know where that comes from. I know that was for me. It's like I want you to like me. And if you like
Hmm.
this, therefore then you will like me.
Mm.
And that makes me feel safe and whatever. For some people there's a lot of perfectionism like that. I want this to be perfect, and I will, that's going to be what leads, and I will put that perfection in front of like the other things in my business or my life to make sure that like I feel good about myself, that I delivered the best thing possible. And sometimes it has nothing to do with the client. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
I just have to make sure that I feel proud of this at the expense of other things too sometimes.
Oh yeah. So for with the perfectionism, for sure. I mean, I have suffered from perfectionism for my entire life. It's gotten a little bit better, I think, but I don't know. People that work for me probably wouldn't say that. But yeah, a lot of the times the clients aren't even going to notice the things that we notice, right? Because we're the details people, so it's like we put this pressure on ourselves for that, but they're not necessarily going to even notice some of the details that we do. But what you're saying about like we want someone to like us, and if they like our work, yeah, it's like we are putting our worth, our self-worth in our work. And so if they don't like it, a lot of people, a lot of designers, I used to be the same way. We would take it personally. Oh, they don't like me because they didn't like this work, instead of looking at it more objectively too. And then that also gets into like, well, now they didn't like this, and now I'm going to do all this extra work, and I'm going to, maybe give them a discount. I've done all these horrible things. But I know you talk a lot about, undercharging and over delivering, quite a bit, and how you did that as well.
Yeah, and just kind of to your point, like I created so much more work for myself than the client ever asked for. And so part of that over delivering, part of looking at that piece is like, is this necessary? Am I being asked to do this? Is this really part of it? Am I being paid for this that I'm doing? And so over delivering has a lot of different flavors in terms of like, is it because the client's taking advantage or asking for more and I don't feel comfortable talking about money, or that this is going to cost more? Am I delivering more than what's being asked for out of like perfectionism, or like I don't know enough, so I have to like go above and beyond to prove myself? There's so many reasons why we find ourselves in these positions, and everybody is a little bit different. The stuff that we bring with us from the rest of our life, if we think that it just like, oh, I'm this way in my life but I'm this way in business, that's usually not how that works.
Yes, 100%. And it's so funny you said that, because I realized, about less than a decade, but almost a decade ago, I realized that a lot of like psychological trauma from my childhood was causing me to have these issues in my business. And I went through a lot of work, like a lot of mindset work with coaches, with a therapist, to work through that. And it was like, once I understood where that was all coming from and like how to deal with it, it changed everything. Totally changed everything.
Me too. Me too. Like I had no idea that day where I was like sitting in my office being like, is this all there is? That I was actually like going on a personal development journey that just happened to be like web design just happened to be the skill that was going to take me on the journey.
Mm.
But it has been like a journey of self discovery. And anytime I'm up against something new, I can kind of look back at, oh, that's that thing again that keeps coming up. Like for me, a lot of the things that we just talked about, yes, for me, but like my ultimate thing is like, I'm kind of a control freak. Kind of. I say kind of.
I
I'm a
am really
control
a
freak.
control freak.
So I wouldn't describe myself as a perfectionist because I'm fine with like making mistakes and whatever, but I want to know. You asked me, do I want to know the future? I want to know the future. Like I want to know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So that I can feel like I'm in control, and that if I need to make adjustments, I know what to expect. And so that can get me in a lot of trouble in terms of like mismanaged, like setting expectations and just wanting things to happen a certain way. And every time I come up against the new piece of my business, that is laid out for me to examine again, as I should say. It's like, oh, you thought you solved that a year ago? Here it is again in a new way for you to explore. And hopefully I'm noticing it faster. I'm addressing it faster because like you, I have mentors. I have other people to point it out for me. so that I'm not just like operating blind with this thing that is like that I just kind of carry with me all the time.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And it's like so weird because it was like, I remember talking to a coach one time and she was really expensive. Okay. But like, she was really expensive, but like like, that was like part of my journey too. And it took a few years. Like, it was like, I was also like afraid to invest in myself when it came to like business training. Right. So I started out with like little amounts. And I remember when I thought that was like a lot to spend. Right. And then I progressively, spent more with different coaches over the years for different things. And, I just remember like this one coach, like I thought like I had these specific business issues or whatever, right? And she could see right through me. She's like, no, you have some other stuff going on with your mindset. You need to solve that so you can move your business forward. And it was funny. So I paid her an arm and a leg, but it made all the difference in the world so that I could charge more later and help my business because I was a doormat. Like I was confident in my abilities, but I was a doormat on the outside. And it's pathetic looking back at it now. Like I've seen old emails that I've sent to clients. I mean, it's excruciating. It really is excruciating to read them. It's hard to read them. and so I never want anyone else to feel like that and go through those same kind of things. But yeah, so I invested in a lot of coaching and it was funny because I just remember her saying like, you need to trust yourself more. You make good decisions, but you need to learn to trust yourself more. And just because the client is asking for something or asked you to, whatever they're asking for, it doesn't mean that you're wrong. It doesn't mean you did something wrong. And it doesn't mean that you have to comply either. Like, and you also need to give yourself permission to respond and say no. Like, it's okay to say no, and I don't know, of course it's like, well, yeah, of course everybody says these kinds of things, but just the way that she said it to me was just very different. And it was like, finally it's sinking in.
You mentioned that, and it is so fascinating. And I'm curious what you see with the people in your community and that you mentor. It's that like because we are so tech savvy and smart, and we can figure stuff out, and we can reverse engineer pretty much anything with what we do. I used to be like, oh, I can also like reverse engineer business strategy and processes, and I can just look at what someone else is doing and like and follow, like figure out how they're doing it and apply that to my business, and it would never work. I'm like, but I'm doing the things. I have the pages, I have the funnel, I have the buttons, I have like all of that, and it would never work. And it was not until I invested in coaching that was like a blend of like strategy and here's where you're getting in your own way, someone to like be able to show me that in a really compassionate yet, I don't know, because like just when you said like, oh, I know this, I've heard it before, but now I'm finally hearing it, like that's when everything shifted. It's like, I don't know, like everything's freely available out there for us to consume and,
Right.
all of that, even listening to this podcast. But there's such a difference between like the conversation with the coach that they say the thing that something just clicks in your brain versus trying to reverse engineer your own business coaching, I guess, which is what I tried to do for so many years and it did not work.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. And so it's like funny because it's like I went from being like this doormat to it's like, look, I'm in charge. I'm not putting up with that crap anymore. I started flipping that switch and I was like, I guess it was a little gradual, but it was pretty quick. And then I was like, I'm just not tolerating this crap anymore. And I can't believe I've been doing that. And I started firing clients that, had either been bullies or late payers or questioned something in my contract suddenly that, I'd been working with them for like 15 years. And then they're like, oh no, I know it was, they wanted me to explain their pricing to their board, but I'd been working with them for 15 years. And I was like, nope, next, like, I'm not doing that. I don't need to do that. So it's funny because like, it just shifted so much from there to the opposite.
Yeah. And I just, it's, I don't know. This is probably a whole nother podcast, but like, I'm just like, how do we train our clients how to treat us? Right? Because
And we totally have that ability.
we have that ability, and yet we don't think we can. And we don't, and I call it employee mindset. It's like, we just think that, this is the boss, these are the rules, they get to say and do whatever. And if I want to work for them, I fall in line,
Mhm.
you're actually the boss. Like, you're actually the one telling the client whether or not they can work with you. And when we like shift that, like, that's when we can take back control of all of it.
Yeah, and the other thing too is that like I used to say, like it's like you said a long time, you said a while back, like that's how we're a certain way in our personal life, and we bring that through to our business. It's also like I would ask the wrong people for advice. I was not asking fellow business owners. I was asking like family and friends for their advice with client issues, and all I would hear was, "But they're paying you," and I was just like. So I guess we're expected to pimp ourselves out for the money. So it's okay if they treat us that way because they're paying us to treat us like that, right?
Oh my
And
gosh. Yeah.
it's like so crazy, and it's like then so many designers, and myself included, did this many time, lowball their pricing, and what do you get? You get clients who don't value the work that you do. You get clients that are tire kickers. You get clients that treat you badly a lot of times, and I did that for so many years. And you know what? Lowballing never got me any work. Like, it really didn't. It actually turned off clients.
Well, yeah. And I think it's not like people who don't pay a lot are like bad people. It's just
Right.
there's not enough like pain or commitment or investment for them to like, it's like how you treat something that you bought that's cheap. You're just like, no big deal. I can leave it out. It can get dirty. It's this. It's not, it's no big
Right.
deal. You just don't have the same level of like attention and care and commitment to when you're like, oh, this is really important to me. I'm putting my full attention to this. I want to
Mhm.
nurture this. It's not like I'm a bad person. I just don't value that as much because I didn't spend as much money on it than this other thing that like I just think of like my husband and his new truck where he's like, "Oh, I'm going to pull it out of the, you know, garage, wash the garage floor and then put the truck back because he doesn't want to drive over the salt from the like I'm just like but now my car, since he got the new car, it's just like it can just be dirty over there on the side. He doesn't value it as much as he values, his thing. And that doesn't make him a bad person or anything. It's just he's paying more attention to the thing that he invested more in and values more. And, I just think if we can think about that with our pricing, it's not like I always feel bad when I'm like cheap pricing attracts cheapskate clients. I don't think that that's what it is because my money mindset has evolved over time where like $2,000 felt so expensive to me. And that was a big investment versus now I don't think it's that big of a deal, but the person doing the investing might think that's a huge number and be super committed. So I think that that's just kind of like the nuance there of like, is the person investing valuing the investment? And when we're lowballing, just trying to get the lowest price, at some point we create the opposite where they're like, oh, that's no big deal. Like, I don't have to pay attention to that.
Well,
It'll
it's
get
funny
done when it gets done.
right. Well, it's funny what you're saying too about, like the way we think about money and what is expensive to us, we often project that onto our clients. And it's like we're making up the decision for them. Well, this is going to be too expensive for them, so I better lower my price. They're not going to want to pay this. They're not going to be able to afford it. I better lower my price. And it's like we're making the financial decisions for them without even consulting them.
Yeah. And the other thing that I've heard from web designers is like, I would never pay that much.
Right.
It's like, of course you wouldn't. You can do the thing, you can build the thing. Like, so you feel like because it's easy for you or whatever that you're ripping off your clients, but like you're totally discounting why you would never pay that much because you spent so much time and effort and money learning how to do what you do.
Mm-hmm.
like you wouldn't pay someone else that much, but I bet you would get to the point, some point in your business, if you didn't want to build your own website, that you probably would pay someone else that much to do it for you. You
Yeah.
know? Like right now, I probably would.
Well, the other thing too is that a lot of people say, and I've said this to myself, is that, well, why would someone pay me? Why should they pay me to do this when they can go find out they could go Google it and then figure it out themselves? And it's like, not everybody has that. Not everybody has money as a pain point. Like some people don't
Yeah.
want to do that. They don't have the interest in that. They don't have the time. They don't.
That's such a good point. Like not everybody's pain point is money. I remember like when I finally got to the point where I was like, I can't do this anymore with my web design business. And I was like, oh, I'll teach people how to do it themselves. And I
Mhm.
created a training and all of that. And, the whole other side business that I winded down last year, but I was like earning affiliate commissions, teaching people how to build WordPress sites. And someone took the training and then she was like, can I just hire you to do this for me? And I was like, no, I do not do client work. I'm only teaching for affiliate commissions and courses and all of that stuff. And she was like, but I don't understand. Like, I just want to, like, I know you know what you're doing. I just want to hire you to do it. And I could not understand. I was like, I don't understand why you want to pay me money when I'm giving you this for free. Like, it just did not compute in my brain that
Mm.
she cared more about her time and her sanity than her money.
Mhm.
And it was just like, she broke my brain. And I was like, oh, money is, and I didn't, you just said it so beautifully. Like money isn't everybody's pain point, but if it's your pain point, you think it's everybody else's pain point.
Sure.
Like you
Yeah,
said,
that's
we
true.
project it onto people.
For sure. Well, so what are some tips that you would have for designers to start charging more? Like if so many designers are going to be listening to this and they're going to go, but I just can't. How am I supposed to do it? I'm going to scare off clients. I mean, I always give tips on this too on the podcast, but I want to hear from you what tips you have for that.
Yeah, back to kind of like what you were saying. Like one, stay out of your clients' wallets. I had a business coach say that to me a while ago, and I was like, oh yeah, like their financial situation is none of your business. You don't know what they value. So you're allowed to have a profitable, sustainable business. Your pricing is allowed to be sustainable for you. Figure out what that is, put the decision in front of them, let them decide. So that would be thing one. Thing two is do a little mini audit of your website and how you're talking about your services. Do you slip in the word affordable, budget,
Mm,
all of these words that are like showing to people that you think that in order to hire you, you have to be the lowest price. Is that your selling point? And see if you can just remove those words from your copy, from your marketing. That does not have to be your positioning, that you're the most affordable or budget friendly or all of these things that we think. That's
mhm.
a clear sign of like of how you think that people make decisions based on the dollar signs only, and they don't, like we were discussing.
And like you don't
So
value your own work.
yeah. And then my other tip would be um to and y'all know, you'll all have someone that comes to mind as soon as I say this. Think of your most pain in the butt client, or we call it a PETA client if you want to, use the I'm keeping it PG, but the PETA client. Um who is that person, and decide like how much is it worth to me to keep this client? Like they would have to pay me X in order for me to continue working with them. And then give them that option to pay X or go somewhere else. And start there with someone who you'd be happy either way, if they left or if they paid your new price. And I think that that's like a baby step someone could take to just start raising their prices and or getting some of your precious time and sanity back.
Yeah, really. Well, when you're talking about if your website says affordable or discount or whatever, you attract what you put out there.
Yeah.
So if that's what you're going to get, you're going to get clients looking for cheap if that's what you're putting out there. The same thing with like the type of work you put out there. Don't put work out there. I used to have all kinds of things on my website to show that I could do everything, right? It's like, what did I start getting? I started getting a lot of HTML email coding, which I couldn't stand. And everyone kept bringing it to me. And I'm like, stop putting it out there so you don't get it.
Yeah, I had like an
Same goes for
asphalt
pricing.
association. I didn't even know this existed, but an association for asphalt manufacturing and suppliers. So they were the trade association for
Mhm.
asphalt manufacturers. I had that on my website and I kept getting all of these because that was the vendor. They did association. So all kinds of different ones. And I was like, I don't want to work with these kinds of companies anymore. So guess what? I'm not going to put it out there.
So what kinds of things do you do to, help get clients to see the value of the work? What kind of recommendations do you have for that?
Yeah. So I think that we go through a whole process of selling yourself on the value of like the outcome that this website will create for your client. Because one of the
Yes.
problems that people have, they're like, oh my gosh, it's so easy with page builders. And, the actual process of building of like creating the thing is not difficult. And so people are like, because it's not complex, it's not brain surgery, therefore it can't be worth that much. And I like to invite people to completely shift how they think about that and start looking at like, what are all the other um things that people value did this create for them, not just the end part of it, but like you doing it for them, you designing something that actually solves a problem for their business,
Yeah.
all of these things. And when you truly stop looking at it as the clicks and the keyboard strokes that you do to create the thing for the client and then for the people that the clients serve. Like, I know you do a lot of accessibility work and you were
Hmm.
just like open, like it's not even just about the client, it's about the ripple effect beyond
Right.
what they're able to do, the impact they're able to have. And when you start looking at it through that lens instead of like, here's how long it took me, here's how many pages, here's how hard it was, here's how easy it was, like
Hmm.
you just detach from that old paradigm and you start thinking about it in a new way. And you start to have an internal shift like, oh, this is really valuable. I am helping them have a big impact in multiple areas. And once you stop thinking about it as like a commodity and a thing, I think that really helps start making that shift happen.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it also could be just like, an increase in sales, or an increase
Yeah.
in donations. I redid a website for a nonprofit for an animal rescue. And I mean, they got 33% more donations in the first 3 months after that website was launched. Like that's huge.
Yep.
Right. So I always like to go back to and like ask them, like, how did this help? What kind of results did you get? And then, then that's something you can put in a case study and talk about, show other clients, hey, this is what I did. And then that also helps put the focus on, here's what I'm doing for you. I just happen to be doing it through building a website or whatever it is.
Yeah. It's like you want more impact. This will help you create more impact. It's not just it solves so many problems. I think if you can focus on the problems, the solutions, the impact, like all of those things, it's just you will feel better about your prices and what you do and saying no and all of those things.
Yeah, I think you'll do a better job too, because you won't be
Yeah.
like so focused on how long is this going to take me. And, but the other thing too is I like to say, like, with flat rates, like forget hourly, but like flat rates, it's like it's better for both parties. You know how much you're going to get paid, but they know how much they're going to be writing the check for. Nobody wants to be like, there's no point. I've had clients, I had clients years ago be like, well, how much is your hourly rate? And it's like when I was still saying, okay, I'm charging by the hour, they would often go, well, someone else can do it for less. Great. How long is it going to take them? Probably, 3 times as long because I've been doing this a very long time. Right. So they never take into consideration, how long is it going to take? I'm writing a blank check as far as I know, so there really is a benefit for them too, to the flat rates that I don't think a lot of designers understand when they're charging hourly.
Yeah, and I think hourly kind of, you know, you're gonna get to a certain number that is going to create sticker shock in an hourly rate. If someone
Mm-hmm.
is like, "Oh, I wanna look at hourly rates and compare hourly rates with other designers or even other professions," right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I just don't think I totally agree with you. I think flat rate pricing is the way to go, project per project pricing, and um and just showing your client why it's in their best interest to do that with you instead of to go with someone else hourly. Or you can say, if you want to know my hourly rate, actually this per project pricing is going to be cheaper than my hourly rate. So do you want a flat pricing, or do you want my real hourly? Do you want to do this hourly? Because I can bill it hourly, but you're going to save money doing it this way.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Well, the other thing that I have found is that to help me price more, well, not even to help me price more, but even just to win more work much more easily than in the past when I was doing all the things, is just focusing on one type of work too. I mean, it also speaks to profitability because it's like I have a process for this accessibility work and I'm doing things a certain way, right? Before, when I was doing like HTML emails and web design and development and brochures and logos. And it was like there were so many different processes for so many different things, or too many things to have to like switch hats with, go from creative to technical. It was just so time consuming and draining. And I feel like also like, not only are you more profitable when you narrow it down to like one type of work or some kind of a niche, right? Maybe a certain type of client, certain type of work, it's so much more profitable, but at the same time, you really hone in on your expertise and it's easier to charge more. You get seen as a specialist. And I talk about that all the time. too. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think we all go through stages of our career, right? Where we're like, "Oh, I wanna learn everything. I wanna try this, I wanna try that. I wanna see what I'm good at. I wanna see what I hate." Like,
yeah.
we go through that process, and I do think, just like you said, you get to a point where you're like, you build confidence that you know you can get clients for a certain thing or a certain niche or a certain type of work, and then you start to feel like, oh, I don't have to be everything to everyone, right? Like,
Oh, true. Yeah.
other professions have specialties. You're not like, you can hire, like, you can't even probably really hire a general attorney who's going to be able to do your patent work and your employment work and like all of these things, right? Like, typically, you don't find someone that's like a jack of all trades. And for whatever reason, we feel like we have to be the jack of all trades or the Jill of all trades or the
hmm
whatever. And I don't think that we have to, unless you like to do that, which is totally fine. But where I see people like trip themselves up is where they're like, I feel like I have to be good at all of it. And I'm
hmm
not, and I am lacking in certain areas, and therefore I hold myself back. I undercharge because I feel like, oh, I'm a really great developer, but I'm not a good designer, or I can't charge that much because my skills in this area are lacking. Instead of like focusing in on the things that you're great at and finding partners or other people that you can refer the other piece. Like, for me, I'm not a designer. Like, I am like the behind the scenes, like make everything work, build the funnel, like make the tech talk, come up with creative solutions. But design is not my forte, but I can take your design and make it work and do all of that. And so for the longest time, I'm like, well, I can't charge that much because I'm not a designer. I just can do things behind the scenes. And I think if I would have just embraced that and been like, hey, designers who don't want to touch any of the stuff that I love, let's, you know, let's collab. That would have changed a lot of things for me back then.
Oh, yeah. Same here. Well, so we talked about earlier, you have the Profitable Web Designer Academy. So why don't you talk a little bit about that and how you help designers and where they can find that?
Yeah, so I started the Web Designer Academy back in 2016. It started just as like a small group coaching program as I met other women web designers who were like, "Hey, I need help with all of the things that we that we talked about today." And it's evolved over the years to like have a curriculum and, just a community and all of those things. And really what we do is we help people with a lot of the things that we talked about here. Right. Like we say we help them create a profitable and sustainable business. And we look at all of the facets like where are the gaps? Where are you leaking time? Where are you leaking money? And really kind of help you figure out like where do you need to put your focus in order to solve some of these problems? And so we're a group coaching program. So you learn from other people in the community, but you also get mentored by me and my client success coordinator, Erica. We give you feedback on all of your stuff. So, when people come in, they have certain goals like, oh, I want to make this much money, or I want to, I'm overloaded with clients and I need to fix that. So we basically create like a customized plan for them to help them solve the problems that are going to have like the biggest impact right now to free up their time, make them more money. And someone we just got off of our call earlier and someone was like our community is that they called it their sanity saver because just like with what you and I talked about, we all go through it. Like we all go through it. Someone's going through it. Someone's gone through it. Someone's gonna go through it. And so we can all like support each other. So the thing that we want for our students is for them to have a profitable, sustainable business, whatever that means to them. It doesn't always necessarily mean that you have to have high-end websites or whatever. You get to build it in a way that serves you. And we get rid of all the vanity metrics and all of the things and help you really create something that supports your life instead of traps you
Yeah.
like like what we did in the beginning. So yeah, so that's the Web Designer Academy and it is like my pride and joy.
And so how did you start that?
I actually I was referred to this group called Skill Crush. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they are like a coding boot camp
Hmm.
for women, and they were teaching WordPress. And someone who was affiliated with them and knew me asked me to speak at their conference about how I built my web design business and how I was making money with WordPress. And I had a business coach at the time who I was like, they want me to do this talk. Like, I don't understand why they want me. Like, why would they want me to do this? And she was like, because you have figured it out, they see that that would be of value to their audience. And also, you should think about like doing an offer after that. And I was like, an offer for what? I teach like business owners how to DIY. She was like, to show the people who are there how you've done it more in depth than a 30-minute presentation. And so it just was not even like clicking to me at all that like the Web Designer Academy could ever be a thing. It was just not even a thing. And so I was like, fine, you're my business coach. I'll do what you say. I'm not paying you to not do what you say. So I'll just do this. and, and so after that presentation, I was like, hey, if you want to learn more, I'm doing, a talk about this thing, come to it. And I had like, I don't know, 1,000 people sign up for
Wow.
the talk. And then I was like, hey, I'm doing this thing. It's called group coaching program for web designers. I didn't even know. And that's when I got my first cohort and like walked them through like, here's everything that I've learned. Here's all the mistakes that I've made. And in the many years since that happened, like I said, it's evolved to have like a full curriculum and a full like formal coaching component and all of these pieces that we've added as we've really evolved. But it really just kind of came out of like, oh, I'm just a few steps ahead and I can lead them through what I've been through. And now it's been several years of coaching hundreds of web designers, and not to like diminish anybody's problems, but it's all very similar and it's all, we see this like journey that you go through. And so we can usually spot exactly what's going on and help you fix it pretty quick. So yeah, that's how it happened.
That's great. Like totally part of the journey.
Oh yeah, unexpected. Like you said, if I would have seen that as my future from the beginning, if you would have shown me the future and told me that, I would have been like, no, that's not what that's that's not what I'm supposed to be doing. But yeah, I love it.
And what's the URL?
Webdesigneracademy.com.
So Shannon, where can people find your podcast?
Yeah, so I have the Profitable Web Designer podcast, and you can find that at webdesigneracademy.com/podcast. We drop a new episode every week, and you'll get to hear Colleen on the podcast. Depending on when you're listening to this in the near future, or yeah, definitely go check out our interview there too.
Great. Well, thank you so much. This was a really great discussion. I'm sure it's going to help a lot of designers who are listening. Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
If you want to show off that you're a design dominator while supporting the podcast, be sure to grab a shirt, hat, mug, or other merchandise in one of 3 designs. Just go to creative-boost.com/merch.